Jimmy Savile died in October 2011. Even after his death, a veil of secrecy covered the truth about his activities.
In mid-December 2011, I got a call from a BBC contact of mine who told me that there were various people working at the BBC who were unhappy about the fact that a Newsnight investigation into Savile had been axed in what were described to me as mysterious circumstances. So I did some digging over a period of about a week, and I discovered that indeed there had been a BBC Newsnight investigation into Savile, and it had been axed. It was made clear to me that several witnesses, middle-aged women, had come forward, and some of them had spoken on the record about abuse that they had suffered at the hands of Savile on BBC premises. So I put this to the BBC press office about 3 or 4 days before Christmas 2011. It took them 24 hours, but they did confirm that they had conducted this investigation. They told me it had been dropped for editorial reasons. I therefore had confirmation that the investigation had taken place. I knew what its contents were, and I tried to sell that story to 7 national newspapers over the next 2 weeks.
Despite the robust evidence backing up the allegations, not a single newspaper decided to run the story.
An executive from one very well-known newspaper told me that, in fact, his editor had also heard stories about Savile, but decided that because he'd only been dead for about 2 months by this point, it would be in bad taste to run the story. The doors closed, really, and the story was sort of no interest to any of them, which amazed me. I suddenly remembered that there was one person who not only might have had some knowledge of Savile as an individual, but who was sure to run the story because he has a reputation as a mischief maker. That person is Richard Ingrams, the editor of the Oldie magazine. He'd previously edited Private Eye for about 25 years. I rang Richard Ingrams, and within 30 seconds he said that he wanted to take the story, and he did indeed publish the allegations in full in the February 2012 issue of the Oldie. The Oldie article was the first occasion when any of the allegations against Savile were published in full.
On the 4th of October 2012, ITV broadcast Exposure, the other side of Jimmy Savile. For the first time, the whole country was aware of the allegations against the disgraced star.
I think everybody in Leeds watched it. It's not very nice to, somebody that you liked and trusted, being such a character.
I suppose my feelings were one of smugness, self-satisfaction, there you are, I told you so, disappointment that it had taken so long, disappointment that the guy had died so he couldn't face justice, but happy that it had come out.
The day after Exposure was broadcast, the Metropolitan Police launched Operation U-Tree, looking into the actions of Jimmy Savile, as well as numerous other allegations of historic sexual abuse.
The Metropolitan Police and the NSPCC painted a picture of abuse on an almost industrial scale.
Over 450 individuals have since come forward to allege that Savile abused them. Most were under 18 when the offences took place.
It doesn't matter how much money you raise for charity. If you are at the same time abusing children, abusing disabled people, robbing them of their dignity, robbing them of their childhood, making them incredibly unhappy, you can only be a bad person and your legacy will always be poisonous.
I think the Jimmy Savile outrage undoubtedly has a legacy. I mean, it has the legacy that, if you like, the can of worms is open. The extent of abuse within society now is beginning to be accepted. Jimmy Savile was one offender. He doubtless abused thousands of people during the course of his lifetime. But we know that there are many millions of other people in this country who have suffered abuse at the hands of all sorts of other people. And the legacy that should follow such an outrage is that we don't allow this to be swept under the carpet any longer.
I think it's helped alert the British public to the scale of child abuse, not just involving celebrities, but involving other corruptors, destroyers of young lives. I think that it probably means that the prosecuting authorities and the police now take complaints or evidence of abuse far more seriously.
The police have been fantastic, because that was a nerve-wracking experience, and positives, I suppose, for my own life, because I'm now much more grounded with it, I suppose. I know what triggers me, I know what doesn't. It's easier to live with now, and hopefully that's going to enable me to get another relationship at some point.
I find it disturbing that political leaders who were, for example, so keen to call for the Leveson inquiry into misconduct in the press aren't doing the same for an overarching judicial inquiry into the much bigger and life-damaging consequences of multi-institutional failures in, over child abuse, going back 30, 40, 50 years.
In October 2012, the elaborate headstone that marked Savile's final resting place in the North Yorkshire cemetery where he was buried was torn down. He now lies in an unmarked grave. The staggering scale of Savile's abuse continues to grow, and questions still remain about how he was able to prey on young, vulnerable children for over 50 years.
I think that is a reflection of how society views the crimes, that they'd rather they didn't think about them. And, oh, Jimmy was that way. Well, Jimmy was a rapist and a child abuser. That's established beyond doubt. Lots of people knew. Nobody did anything about it. That's the real outrage.